Hello, I'm Kaylee, I'm a social worker in the UK. In this video I'm going to be giving you a case example from adult services. This is a made up scenario, so there's no confidential details shared. So Anne has been referred to social services due to concerns around self-neglect. She was referred by a matron who states that she lacks capacity. She lives with her son who is an informal carer, but the referrer is concerned that she is not managing, he can barely take care of himself, let alone his mother. The house is very unclean and an emergency placement in short-term 24-hour care is being requested. So some things that I'd think about if I was given this referral is, what does Anne want herself? So we'd gather that information by going and doing a visit and talking to her. The reason that I'd be thinking that is because the wellbeing principle is central to the work that we do in social services. So that's thinking about what's important to her. She needs to have choice and control over her life. Even if she does have cognitive impairment, we still need to make sure that we're aware of her views and wishes. So I'd also be sort of guided by the Making Safeguarding personal guidance, which says that the outcomes a person wants is really important, because social workers have been involved in the past, and from their research it shows that people felt sort of brought along by a process and going through something in regards to safeguarding where it resulted in no real outcomes for them. So it's really important that we're finding out what's important to that person. So I'd go and visit Anne and sort of assess the risks myself, see whether she is sort of showing signs that she's self-neglecting, and find out a bit more from the sort of background of the health professionals as well around the information they have, if there's any risk factors, so maybe issues with the skin integrity, finding out if they've actually done a capacity assessment, because with the referral it said that she lacked capacity, but capacity is decision specific, so we'd need to know in regard to what decision. And if we were thinking on going in and seeing her that there are concerns that would sort of mean that there are Section 42 safeguarding concerns that need to be raised, whether she understands these risks, we need to try and establish her ability to for informed consent around this safeguarding concern. And that means discussing things in a way that she understands as far as we can. So we'd need to look at what's going on, find out sort of from her perspective whether she feels that she's managing at home, a bit about her relationship with her son, whether her son does see himself as an informal carer, and if so, if he wants to continue in that role. If the risks are not too high, we may be able to sort of work with the two of them to improve the situation and give them support so that this works better. That may be taking some pressure off him by putting some other services in place. That could be carers coming in, or it could be other things like telecare sensors if there's risks around falls or her needing to get support in an emergency, which may mean that then he can go out and do things and feel that she's safe and gives him a break, and then the two of them can manage. That may help him if he's feeling stressed, and he could have respite support as well. If he's drinking to excess, you need to maybe find a way to talk to him and find out if that's something that he sees as a problem, or if he wants any support with that. If Anne has concerns around that, sort of talking to her and finding out her views on the situation. Hopefully there'd be a chance to speak to her on a one-to-one basis about these things, because it could be difficult to speak to her and her to feel able to express herself when her son's there, if there are concerns. If she struggles to speak about her own views and wishes and doesn't have anyone to support her with this, then we need to consider an independent advocate. Thinking about the environment around her, we'd do that by observing when we go, and also finding out a bit more information from any professionals that may be involved as well. We'd be thinking about whether she understands some of the risk factors in her environment. So I've been involved in the past where people maybe would say that they are managing, but when you actually go and see them, there may be things that they've overlooked, or they don't fully show that they are able to follow through with managing the risks that are around. So that could be something like leaving food out on the side which should be in the fridge, but saying that they understand that food needs to be in the fridge, but every time you go for the visit you see that it's not, and that's something that can show that maybe they're struggling with their executive capacity. Something that's useful to consider for social workers is we're meant to promote anti-oppressive and anti-discriminatory practice. So we need to be aware of sort of some of the discrimination that can be part of everyday sort of society and societal views, and that can be ageism can sort of be part of that, that we need to protect older adults, and there can be some judgment there, and that can influence decision making around managing risk, and we need to be balanced around that. We need to not be blind and take a rule of optimism around what's actually going on, but we do need to sort of be balanced and not overstate the concerns as well. So that's why it's important that we use our own professional judgment rather than just doing things to people as a result of the information that we've been given. So that may be just taking on face value the concerns of others and then forcing Anne, before we've done anything else, to just put her in 24-hour care because that's what other professionals are saying. That would be completely wrong, and we wouldn't be sort of following the guidelines of the legislation that we're working within. So every piece of legislation in social services sort of underpinning our practice is that we need to promote human rights, and that includes sort of people's rights to private and family life. But we have sort of a ethical dilemma really between promoting people's autonomy, but then also the duty to safeguard people from abuse and neglect. So something that I've been reading is about the outcome of some safeguarding concerns that have been raised, and the outcome of serious case reviews where social workers sometimes maybe didn't follow through enough on some of the serious concerns that were coming in, because it was looked upon as lifestyle choice. Sometimes self-neglect can have really serious consequences, so I'm sort of aware of that, and that we need to be careful with what we do with this like complex area of practice. So there's something that is useful to read. I'll put it in the description box, but overall we need to be thinking about taking the least restrictive response to the risk presented, thinking about the person being number one priority. There's no hierarchy to wellbeing under the Care Act, and if you look at the Care and Support Statutory Guidance, that's really useful to consider with that, something that we have to look at. So we need to think about someone's emotional well-being as well as their physical well-being and safety. So that means that their happiness and their feeling of wanting to live independently, if that's something that is really important to her and she doesn't want to go into 24-hour care, is really important to consider. Because sometimes we may protect the person physically by getting them into a care home and then we feel that they're safe, but actually their emotional well-being may be compromised. So there's always loads of things to consider. So these are things that just came to mind for me, but if you have any other thoughts around this, just drop them in the comments section. And if you like this video, please subscribe and let me know any suggestions on videos you'd like to see next.